Have you ever felt this way? Like you're trying to believe, but you can't anymore. As if faith was something that worked for others, but no longer made sense to you. If this is your case, please stay with me for a few more minutes. Perhaps this conversation is exactly what your heart has been asking for so long. Not for ready-made answers, but for hope, for reason, for meaning. I know what it's like to live with that tension in your chest. I'm Lee Strobel, and before I became known as an author of books on faith, I was the exact opposite. I was a skeptic. A Chicago Tribune journalist with a law degree, trained to be suspicious of everything. And, to be perfectly honest, I saw faith as fragile, emotional, naive, even to me. God was just a myth, a human invention to fill in what science couldn't yet explain. And Jesus, just a historical figure, distorted by centuries of religious tradition. And then my wife became a Christian. That was a shock to me. The woman with whom I shared my life, my ideas, my dreams suddenly began to change. Not in a forced way, but with a peace, a grace, an inner strength that I couldn't understand. And that bothered me deeply, because I wanted what she had. But I couldn't believe what she believed. That's when I made a decision. I was going to prove, once and for all, that her faith was an illusion, that God was a fantasy, that Jesus was nothing more than a myth. And so, I could save her from this transformation, and who knows, bring back the woman I knew. What I didn't expect is that this journey to refute Christianity would end up changing my life in ways I could never have imagined. I thought I was just doing an intellectual investigation, but little by little, I realized that the doubt wasn't just in the books. It was inside me. It wasn't just my wife's faith I wanted to dismantle. I was trying to resolve something that ached inside my own heart, and I couldn't even explain what it was. You know, that silent emptiness. That feeling that, even surrounded by people, you're alone inside. That, even with professional success, recognition, routine, something essential is still missing. I knew this well, and for a long time, I tried to ignore it. Maybe you're feeling the same way right now. Maybe you pray, but it feels like no one's listening. Maybe you go to church, but everything feels mechanical and distant. Or maybe you're on the verge of abandoning everything because deep down, you feel like your faith is dying. If that's the case, let me tell you something. The crisis you are facing now may not be the end of your faith. It could be the beginning of a deeper, more honest, and more alive faith than you've ever known. During my journey, there came a point when I realized I was tired. Tired of trying to appear strong. Tired of hiding doubt with sarcasm. Tired of pretending I had everything under control. It was at that moment that something started to change. Because for the first time, I stopped fighting the question and started to really listen to it. What if it's true? Not just intellectually, but in the soul. What if it's true that there is a God who knows me by name, who sees my flaws, my arrogance, my sins, and still loves me? What if the faith I mocked was the very anchor I'd been searching for all along? These thoughts confronted me more than any theological argument, because deep down, my crisis of faith wasn't just about trials. It was about pain, pride, and fear of surrender. It was about not wanting to appear weak, not wanting to depend on anyone, not even God. But doubt has a strange way of revealing truths that pride has long hidden. That question, what if it's true, haunted me for weeks. I tried to pursue my investigation as an objective journalist. I read ancient documents, interviewed scholars, and sought contradictions in biblical accounts. But something had already shifted within me. I was no longer just trying to prove my wife wrong. I was looking for something for myself. Doubt was no longer a weapon against faith. It had become an invitation. And look, it wasn't an easy process. No true transformation is. He had one particular day I'll never forget. I was sitting alone in my home office. Stacks of notes, books scattered, interviews transcribed. And in that silence, the penny dropped. Everything I had discovered about the reliability of the Gospels, Jesus' death on the cross, the reality of the resurrection, the courage of the early Christians, the testimony of enemies who converted all, pointed in one direction. Perhaps Jesus really was who he said he was. I felt small because for years I had ignored this possibility, not for lack of evidence, but for excessive pride. And for the first time in my life, I cried in the face of a truth I could no longer deny. It was an empty emotion. It wasn't a mystical experience. It was an inner collapse, as if all the walls I had built to keep God out had finally crumbled. And in that instant, I understood. Doubt had brought me there. But it was grace that was waiting for me at the end of the road. And maybe the same thing is happening to you. Maybe your doubt is not a sign that your faith is gone. Maybe it's a call not to give up, but to come home. It was an ordinary day. No thunder, no lights, no angels. Just me, alone in my room, kneeling beside the bed. After 2 years of research, interviews, and internal confrontations, I knew the time had come to stop running away. With a choked voice and a heavy heart, I spoke the hardest words of my life. Jesus, I believe. I don't have all the answers. I still have doubts. But I trust in you. It was simple. No speeches, no big emotions. But it was real. And in that instant, everything changed. I'm not saying that from that point on my life became a fairy tale. No, many struggles continued. But there was a peace of presence that I had never experienced before. And you know what surprised me the most? God didn't wait for me to be perfect. He didn't require me to resolve all my questions before accepting me. He just wanted my sincere heart. And maybe that's what he wants from you too. Maybe you're waiting to feel worthy before you start believing again. But let me tell you a secret I learned. Faith doesn't begin when everything makes sense. Faith begins when you recognize that even with your doubts, your failures, your falls, you are still deeply loved by God. You don't have to pretend. You don't need to hide your pain, your disappointment, your frustration with the church or with people. God is not offended by your doubt. He welcomes those who seek him sincerely. If you are in crisis, don't give up now. Sometimes God allows everything around us to fall apart, not to destroy us, but to rebuild something stronger, truer, and more alive within us. You may be wondering, but Lee, what if I can't truly believe? What if my faith is too weak? I understand that. I really do. Do you know why? Because even after my conversion, there were times when doubt tried to creep back in. Times when the pain of real-life losses, frustrations, God's silence made me ask, does it still make sense? And it was in those moments that I discovered something precious. God does not demand perfect faith. He responds to sincere faith, even if it is small. The Bible talks about this. Jesus said that if we have faith the size of a mustard seed, it's enough to move mountains. Sometimes what God is waiting for from you is not a flawless theological statement, but a simple whisper. Lord, I don't understand everything, but I want to know you. Over the years since my conversion, I've met many people who have gone through the fire of doubt. Some were grieving. Others had been hurt by religious leaders. Still others felt they had failed too much to be accepted by God, and they all thought their faith was gone. But you know what I saw? These people were not lost. They were being purified. Faith that survives doubt is faith that becomes unshakable. Not because you have all the answers, but because you've learned to trust even when you don't. If you're in this dark season, don't think God has moved away. He may be closer than ever, just silently waiting for you to stop struggling alone and reach out. One of the biggest revelations I had was this. God is not afraid of our questions. He is truth, and all truth stands up to scrutiny. Jesus himself, on the cross, cried out, "My God, why have you forsaken me?" Yes, the Son of God also asked a question. If he can ask, so can you. Your doubt doesn't disqualify your faith. It can be the path that leads you closer to God, not further away. When I was an atheist, what distanced me most from faith was religiosity. People who spoke of God, but lived without love. People who used the Bible as a weapon. Doctrines, rituals, formulas, all these seemed cold and mechanical to me. And maybe that hurt you too. But it was only after I truly knew Jesus that I understood. Christianity is not a religion. It's a relationship. Jesus didn't die on the cross to give you a list of rules. He died to reconcile you with the Father, to bring you back, to say, "You are mine." Today, looking back, I ask myself, what if I had continued to ignore it? What if I had chosen pride, not truth? My life would be empty. My family would be destroyed, and, worse, I would have lost the greatest love in the universe without even knowing what it was. But God reached me, not afraid, not with condemnation, but with truth and grace. And that's what he wants to do for you, too. If you are ready, he is waiting. You don't need to understand everything right now. You just need to take the next step. I'm not here to judge you, not even to demand perfect faith from you. I'm here to tell you that every journey of faith begins with a simple step, a sincere desire to seek. Even if filled with doubt, you can start now. Wherever you are, it could be a prayer, a question, a silence. But above all, it is an open invitation for you to allow yourself to start over. God stands with open arms, waiting for you to trust him. Even if this is your first act of faith, the faith that arises from confronting doubt is powerful. She is not blind, it is a faith that knows where the shadow is, because it has already walked in the dark. And this faith brings hope. Hope that changes the way you look at life, suffering, love. I know, because that hope changed everything for me. Today, after so many years, I can say, the faith that I once tried to destroy was the one that saved me. And maybe, now, she's about to save you too. No matter how far you have felt from God, no matter how many questions are still unanswered. It doesn't matter how long you've spent in silence, doubt, or pain. What matters is that God never gave up on you. He is here, now, not as an abstract idea, but as a Father who knows your name, understands your tears, and is ready to walk with you step by step toward healing, truth, and life. You don't have to have perfect faith, you just have to have enough faith to say, God, if you still want me, here I am. And do you know what He answers? I never stopped wanting you. Maybe this is the time to go home. What if it's true? Then everything changes, and that could be the best decision of your life. I'm praying you have the courage to take this step, even if it's shaking, even if it's little by little, even with my heart still full of questions, because grace, that wonderful grace, is already waiting for you at the end of the road, and it never fails. I know, because that hope changed everything for me. Today, after so many years, I can say, the faith that I once tried to destroy was the one that saved me, and maybe now, she's about to save you too. No matter how far you have felt from God, no matter how many questions are still unanswered, it doesn't matter how long you've spent in silence, doubt, or pain. What matters is that God never gave up on you. He's here now, not as an abstract idea, but as a Father who knows your name, understands your tears, and is ready to walk with you step by step toward healing, toward truth, toward life. You don't have to have perfect faith. You just need to have enough faith to say, God, if you still want me, here I am. And do you know what He answers? I never stopped wanting you. Maybe this is the time to go home. What if it's true? Then, everything changes. And that could be the best decision of your life. If you feel that moment has arrived, I invite you to pray with me. It doesn't have to be fancy or religious, just sincere. God, I don't have all the answers. Sometimes I don't even know if I know how to pray right. But today, I open myself before the Lord, with my doubts, with my tiredness, with everything that I am. I don't understand everything, but I want to believe. Jesus, if what they say about you is truth, then come into my life. Transform my heart, forgive my sins, and show me the way. I don't know how to walk alone. But if the Lord is with me, so I want to take that step. I give you what I am, and I trust that the Lord can do something new from here. Amen. If you prayed this sincerely, it doesn't matter how big your faith is. The important thing is that it was real, and God honors a sincere heart. Always welcome to the beginning of a new journey. It won't be perfect, but it will be transformative, and you will never walk alone again.